just a technical thing. So it's connected to my setup here. I don't see the chat throughout the session. So if you have any questions to me, use the Q&A box. As far as I remember, it's located somewhere in the upper right corner or left corner of your screen. So just type in your questions and then we'll try to go through that at the end of the presentation. And I will do my best to answer as many questions as possible. But of course, because of all of our webinars are so massive, I might not actually have a chance to go through all of them. So if something is going to be left outstanding, you can just find me on Product Tribes, our Slack group, and then I will try to answer your questions there. Well, let me start with thanking you for joining this session and also for having me again at UXPin Virtual Summit. I always enjoy speaking at the summits because this is a way to reach global audience online. We always have people from all the continents and plenty, dozens if not hundreds of different countries. So this is really exciting. And I'm happy to share a couple of thoughts today about where we are in the digital product design industry today, where are we going, and how does it affect the vision for UXPin. Allow me to start with a statement which is probably very obvious for all of us. Digital product design is in the process of growing up, and it's growing up really fast. We are definitely out of the innocence and spontaneity of the early childhood, and now the expectations are much, much higher. Our little drawings don't automatically land on the fridge anymore, or on the top list on Dribble. We have to do definitely more and do it better to get noticed. It's not enough anymore on the current market to have just a website with a decent design. It's definitely not enough to win on the market. You have to be at the very top of your class. And naturally, you have to think about how are you going to get to the next stage and how are you going to stay on top of this entire race. There's certainly a massive pressure on designers today. And if it reminds you of a particular phase in life that we all go through, it's because, in my opinion, digital product design is right now in the teenage years, in the adolescence. And there are, as we know, good and bad things about being a teenager. Certainly, the energy and the growth are great. We always strive for change. We want to make a name for ourselves. We want to fight for what's important to us. And all of that is amazing. And we certainly see that in the design industry today. But our relationships are sometimes awkward. We have a hard time communicating with our peers because we haven't learned yet everything about the complexity of our relationships. So, like for us designers, whether we are working with engineers, product managers, marketing teams, sales teams, we just don't know how to go through that, how to go through the process. And it often results in a misunderstanding. This little comic sums it up really well, in my opinion. Miscommunication leads to disappointing results. Nobody can actually achieve goals if we are not able to communicate properly. What I really like about this little image in particular is that both of these guys are absolutely clueless. One is not better than the other. They just failed. They wanted to make a wheel, they ended up with a square. There's a little wireframe on the tree, and it's probably just not the right way to build a wheel. It's not the right plan. It's not the way to do it. Mm-hmm.
Sorry to interrupt. There are some participants who can't see your keynote. Can you check your screen really quick?
Let's see. Is that better? Can you see it, Lumi?
No. Let's see here.
Oh, hold on. Okay. All right. Let's do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you for interrupting. So you were not able to see the comic, so that was weird. Okay, so now you can see it. Well, as I was saying, what I really like about this particular comic is that both of these guys are at the very same level. Both of them um, were not able to communicate properly, and as a result, they were not able to meet their goals. And this is exactly what's going on in the design industry today. So let's keep this illustration in mind because it's really crucial to everything we are going to talk about today. And as we might remember from your teenage years, when we are teenagers, everything is distracting. Everything becomes the new big thing that we have to get. Everything is distracting all around us, and we always strive for something new, something different. And in the design industry, this whole concept is really connected to the world very close to my heart, to the world of design tools, because every day there's a new design tool out there. And while overall this is really good, competition is always good for any market. It's really increasing the quality of our tooling, which we really desperately we needed that for years now. It's sad that majority of the tools entering the market today are really kind of a Me Too kind of products, and they don't challenge the status quo. At UXPin, we really got used to throughout the 8 years of our presence on the market that a lot of tools looks like our tool when they enter the market, and it's fine. We don't really mind it. We are focused on different things, bigger things, but about that later. And when you are a teenager, you have to grow up. And as a design industry, we have to grow up. The world really requires it. So why, may you ask? Why do we have to grow up? Well, today, digital products rule the world, and they affect lives of billions of people. 5 out of 10 biggest companies by market cap, the companies which logos are on the slides right now, are either exclusively growing by producing software, or software is an important part of their revenue stream. They reach billions of consumers all around the world, and design has the power to steer these products towards being human-centric. On top of that, millions of companies all over the world really need great design to compete with these giants. Otherwise, we'll just end up in the universe full of all-powerful monopolies and zero small businesses challenging them, which would be terrible for the overall quality of software. So all eyes on us. We really have the power to make the world a better place. And all the businesses, all these leading businesses know that without design, they can't really reach their financial goals. So the market is really ripe for increasing importance of design right now. We have to grow up because the world expects us to. And to do that, we really need help. The growth of our industry so far, and really fast growth, of course, as we all know, produced chaos. And chaos is hard to control. Immature processes that we got used to lead to these quote-unquote square wheels that we've seen on this little comic. And this is exactly where the hero of this entire conference enters the stage. Design systems. Design systems, in my opinion, emerged as the remedy for the pains of the digital product design adolescence. Design systems are our way to finally grow up. And, design systems might be the hero that we maybe not deserve, but we really need. And the concept is naturally not new. Brand guidelines, all sorts of style guides, were present in the graphic design industry for a long, long time. Just think about NASA style guides, I believe back from the 70s. Lufthansa style guides, American Airlines, or for example, famous New York subway system visual guidelines from, I believe, the late 50s. I might be wrong here. And one could argue that the whole concept is even older than that because typography specimen are in a way from the same family tree. And we have them from the very beginning of print. And naturally, we've seen throughout the years waves of interest in pattern libraries and reusable interface objects since the very beginning of software. So in a way, design systems are not new. These same concepts are very are present in our market since the beginning of the design. But this time, situation is different. Not only the technology is ready, we have all the development in the JavaScript world, which really empowers modular architecture of applications. And we have definitely a lot of interesting design systems right now, very visible on the market. I mean, like this whole conference is devoted to design systems, and it's not only the only conference about design systems out there. So there's definitely a lot of interest in systems today. But probably most importantly, the business context forces us to invest into design systems because we need to grow up. And there's no growth without guidance. Out of my own experience of working with big organizations, really big organizations, building design systems with UXPin, researching the entire field for a couple of years now, and also building our very own design system at UXPin, which is going to be open source in about a quarter, I can say that design systems provide cross-organizational guidance, order, and a path to mature relationships. Design systems can realize all these three things because the way they work is really as an agreement between all the moving parts of the product organization, all the people working on the product, all the components, all the little things that make experience of a particular company special. The question, of course, is how this agreement looks like. And to do that, about a month ago, I kickstarted an open source project called Adele. Adele is a repository of publicly available design systems and pattern libraries. So far, 59 systems have been thoroughly analyzed in multiple categories by our community. The categories are really spanning from details of the technology used, like the JavaScript framework or the distribution mechanism or tests or linters, like all the little details are very important for the overall technological structure of the system. So that's covered by Adele, but also data structure of the system itself, like whether a system has an accessibility guidelines or particular naming patterns in color palettes. So this is a really detailed analysis available for free at adele.uxpin.com. And perhaps the greatest thing about this project is that Adele is open source. All the data is actually available in a JSON format, and anybody can access it, anybody can modify it, and anybody can actually use this data for their own projects. In the very first month of Adele presence on the market, 15 great contributors joined Adele, and they added new systems, corrected data, made sure that the tooling works great. So if you are interested, if you have your own design system out there, you're working on a system for a company, you can add this system to Adele by just filing a pull request on Adele's GitHub. And again, if you are interested in accessing the data in a human readable way, you can just use the table at adele.uxpin.com. So since we have all this data about design system, we can really talk about where are we as an industry when it comes to design systems. So let's talk about the data. So I prepared a little summary for you. So first of all, there's a lot of conversations about design systems built in Sketch or design systems built in other design tools. But in fact, 95%, 56 out of 59 analyzed systems have coded components. And the question is, how many of them have actual libraries built in a design tool? Only 39%. So today, design tooling is significantly less important to design systems than code. And the disproportion between these two numbers is really massive. And it's also a huge opportunity for the design tooling space to provide a necessary change. And really, in my opinion, goes deep into the very nature of design tools popular and entering the market today. The most popular screen design tools are still based today on the vector or raster graphic model. And neither of those naturally connects to the language used to actually deliver the experience to users, code. And this is how we are getting stuck in the process of translating images of software into software. So remind yourself of this little comic with two cavemen from the very beginning of the talk. These two guys were trying to work off the image stuck on the tree and create a wheel. And they failed. They failed because they were trying to translate requirements into actual product. And this is, of course, how we, majority of us, do the design work today. We're drawing images and then we are counting on engineers to translate images into code. The way it looks like in the world of design system is somehow twisted. So typically, it actually requires manual, really tedious work to always keep design library UIKit in sync inside of a design tool whenever there's a code change to any components. So no wonder few companies actually wants to go through that, and they focus on the more mature way of building components, which is in code. So hopefully design tools industry is going to address this disproportion and take advantage of this opportunity out there to actually keep things in a design system in the constant sync. I don't know how about the others, but I can promise you right now that UXPin is working on that. And we already have a head start because we never believed that a design tool, a very efficient screen design tool, can be built with either vectors or raster graphic. So we built UXPin many years ago, where all the output is actually HTML and CSS with a little bit of JavaScript. With that, let's get back to code. So 77% out of all the systems with coded components are JavaScript based. And this is a somehow fresh development on the market. The pattern libraries like Bootstrap and all the spin-offs of Bootstrap in the corporate world were class-based markup systems, right? So you would have CSS classes styling certain markup elements in a way defined in the system. Those are a minority today. Majority of systems are built with JavaScript. Attempts to use a great, at least in theory, technology, which is web components, are sadly very, very rare. 4 systems out of 59 analyzed in Adele so far have web components. The best example of a system with web components that we had an opportunity to already hear on this conference about today is the system created in GE. One of very rare examples of an actual usage of web components. Hopefully this is going to change in the future, but so far, design systems universe is really ruled by JavaScript. And there's a dominant power in the world of JavaScript-based components in design systems. And this power is React.js from Facebook. 70% of systems with JavaScript components are actually built with React. So there's barely anything else in the world of design systems today. Whether that's good or bad is really hard to say, but I definitely agree with the attractiveness of React for any work on design systems. The community is amazing. There's plenty of tools built on top of React that are helpful in the process of building systems. And it's just a great and easy way to do all the work that we have to. And React is really encouraging modern modular architecture of web and mobile applications, which I think is crucial for the actual implementation of design systems. So React is really dominant, but there are things out there which are even more dominant in the space of design systems. So there are three aspects, three elements, three parts of design systems which are almost always present. 92% of the systems that Adele community analyzed so far have a color palette. 89, a typographic scale of sorts, text styles defined in the system. And 94, a collection of icons. And it is somehow shocking that more systems have icons than a typographic scale. But, well, this is a reality. This is what we have in the world of design systems today. And this is all great. Naturally, these three lie at the very foundation of all the systems out there. But there's a part of the analysis that we've done with Adele community that I don't really like. Only 29% of the analyzed systems have accessibility guidelines. Only 29%. That's really, really low. And I wanted to really emphasize that there is no better place to take care of accessibility of the entire application than a design system. Why? Because if you have accessible components, then you're automatically propagating and popularizing accessibility throughout the entire application whenever these components are being used. So there's definitely a lot of work that we, the design system community, have to do when it comes to taking care of accessibility. So hopefully, if we'll have another State of the Union in a year or so, this number is going to be much, much higher. So those little data points are really important to me in my understanding of design systems at the current stage. I keep observing the stage of design systems, and I love it. I'm kind of a design system nerd, you know, I'm a coding designer, and I just enjoy analyzing over and over again how design systems look like today and why they're so important to all these great companies. But also, I'm really focusing on that because it's important to UXPin. So what does the current state of affairs in the design system world means for UX? Well, UXPin is on the market since 2010, so it's been a while. And since the very beginning, we are on the mission to merge design and development into one new world of better and faster product development process. And throughout the years, you know, we worked on paper prototyping tools, wireframing, prototyping, collaboration, and now design systems. And today, we covered the most important areas of product development process at scale, and we fight for design and development to really speak the same language, which is our passion for so many years. But when it comes to design systems, the story really started in the summer of 2016, when I led the research of exploring the biggest problems in the design industry and the most powerful solutions to these problems. And this is how I actually came across the new wave of design systems and the growing popularity of this whole space. But to understand better how design systems influence our vision for UXPin, we have to take a look at the very nature of our process of building products. And there are two phases in our product development, which can be really easily described: innovation and optimization. Two cycles, two cycles which are strongly connected, but also very easy to distinguish. And yes, every innovation, or almost every innovation, turns into optimization, right? So we like to actually work over and over to perfect stuff that we strongly believe in and our customers see value in. And sometimes certain optimizations actually turn into innovation. So there's a strong connection. They definitely live in the same universe of product development, but they have some very distinctive traits. So innovation really starts with customer development research. Big questions, big answers, right? So the typical question in this research is, what is the biggest problem that you experience every day? And we really like to listen to the answers to set up the strategic direction for UXPin. This is the kind of research that in 2016 focused our attention on design systems. The cycles of building products, innovative products, are longer, right? It takes time to build something from the ground up. It takes also a certain amount of risk that you have to accept to finish an innovative product. And we often actually go all the way to MVP or an alpha test to reevaluate the idea and check if it's still feasible as a business opportunity for the company. And most importantly, perhaps most importantly, at least for me, the process of building the innovative products allows us to give more freedom to our teams and definitely less structure. So for example, a project that we have right now in the innovation phase doesn't have a deadline, doesn't really have a firm structure when it comes to how we work on it. It's really led by our engineers and designers who are directly working on this particular project. So there's not too much of management involved. If anything, it's just the creative freedom that drives the process. Optimization part of our product development process is different. It runs on short cycles, which are strongly connected to our usability tests. So we want to know how users react to our product so we can really correct everything that is not optimal yet. And typically we have multiple releases in a week. Small things, but really important to our customers. The process is much more structured and predictable. It's agile, but it's predictable agile. Why? Because we are promising our customers that we are going to get better with every single release. And quite often they ask when this is going to happen, and we have to have an answer. So it's much more structured. And the first version of UXPin design systems solution that we have been working on since 2016 is right now in the intense optimization phase. So the best way to actually understand our process and also just taking a look at our current solution is actually seeing it in action. So let me show you a couple of things that we recently launched so you can grasp how we are building things at UXPin. I'll switch now to the browser. And we'll get back to the editor, but really the place where we are going to start is the design system documentation. So hopefully you can see right now my browser. I'm just checking it. Okay, big screen. Yes, I guess you can see that. Okay, so the core of our design system solution is really this page, which is fully customizable, and you can document your design system in any way you need. And it comes with certain tools, such as search, which is actually a full page search, and we've added that in the optimization phase. The search was not there when we launched the product originally. So let me just type blue, and you can automatically see all the blue colors that we have in the system. And if you click on it, you'll get redirected to the right part of the design system documentation page. We'll type tab, we get components, and we get redirected to the right part of our documentation. So there's a lot of tooling that we've built throughout the process to actually make the design system documentation really, really usable for the entire company. Our documentation is actually represented by this shareable link. So you can share that across the company, and you don't have to give every single person a UXPin account. They can just access the system from this link. Let's go through the parts of the system so you can really see what we offer right now. I'll click on this link, which is that's information for our customers available from this menu here, to really show you something very special. Everything, all the basic elements of the design system are represented by design tokens. And we'll play a little bit with that so you can see how it works in action. Let's go to colors. As you can see, we've added a lot of options to document your design system with Markdown format. So you can build tables, you can change styling of different elements. So it looks really professionally and also communicates the value. Now, as you can see, we have here all the colors that we use in UXPin in our design system, and they are represented here in design tokens. And something that we've added, and it is really, it's really something that our customers requested, and that's part of our optimization process. You can easily add new colors right from the documentation page. So let's think of a color. We'll go with very, very light shade of gray, just from the top of my mind. You can see it here. We'll just press enter. It's added in the system. Now we can rearrange it in the right place. We'll change its name to, I will be a little bit stupid, but we'll just call it super light gray, just so we can find this. Now, we'll save these changes, refresh our tokens, and you can already see it inside of this token file. So it's really an API for all the basic design tokens. Now, why would you find it useful? You can use tools like Salesforce Theo and just connect it to this token file, which is always up to date. And then you can generate all the style formats that you need. So for example, if you need SAS files with all the colors, you can just generate from here, and your design system team can really change colors from this interface. So that part really works like CMS for design systems. And that's an example of what we've done in our optimization phase. So really, it's really about the details. Another cool thing that our customers really wanted is, changing the appearance of this page. So a couple of easy things. You can arrange colors like that. You can arrange them in this form. You can rearrange everything, so you can change the order of colors or any asset in the design system. So all these little options are important when you're working with a tool, and it's part of our process to just always improve. Same things actually apply to assets. So again, we'll just edit mode, and you can switch between different sizes here. And you can see, as you can probably see, hopefully, UXPin is really fast. So there's dozens of icons, and it doesn't really change anything in the way you save data and change the appearance of it. So performance is something that we always focus on. You can download all of the icons from a single link, or you can download them individually. That's another thing that we actually learned about through our usability tests, and we decided to add that to the system. Finally, let's talk about components. So something very unique about UXPin, and I'm going back again to this little comic from the beginning of the presentation, is that UXPin uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to build components inside of our tool, so they're interactive. This is not a static vector file. You can see hovers. Let me find something more complex. You can see like a drop-down. It actually works because it's built with HTML. And as you can see, you can add a pretty robust documentation right here with examples of implementation of a React component, tables with props, anything that's really you need to have in the design system. Another unique thing about UXPin solution is that you can inspect individual elements in the system by clicking on this little link. Let it load. And now if you're working on a new implementation, new version of a component, you can actually test it in separation and check all the different parts of it, including layers. You can actually see it here, all the states that you have. So you can really just zoom in into every component and inspect it so you can spin it off into any way you really need. So we have this collection of interactive components, and now we'll do something different, and we'll switch to UXPin editor, because all the parts of the system are available from this design system library inside of our design editor. So you have all the colors, text styles, assets, and patterns. So we'll just quickly design something because I want to show you how this whole documentation thing actually works. So I'll just drag and drop a couple of components. Doesn't make too much sense. Doesn't look too bad though. And another thing about optimization phase is that right now in UXPin you have this smart measure tools. Whenever you press Option or Alt, if you're on Windows machine, you can measure the distances between elements really easily. We'll go into preview mode so we can see this little design in action. And another special thing about UXPin is that this is a shareable link. You don't need an account to actually access it. So whenever you're working as a designer, you can just share this link with your team and they can access that, they can comment, they can read the documentation. Now, the important thing about UXPin solution, which we've been working on for a while, is that when you actually click on a component from the design system, you get the documentation from the system right here. Why this is important? First of all, designers don't really need to spend a lot of time documenting things with information from the design system. Developers, on the other hand, can get all the right information in the context of design. So it's really access to information, but also it helps you, if you're on the design systems team, to actually make your design system popular, right? Because it's always visible in design project that people use to build stuff. So now all the people are learning that there is a design system associated with these components. So this is, in a nutshell, what we actually introduced throughout multiple phases of optimizing stuff at UXPin. Let me switch back to presentation, so just hold on. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen right now with presentation. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Charlie. Okay. So optimization is one phase of our process. Let's take a look at what's coming up next. So now I'm going to play a video. I hope the sound is going to be good. And this is the video of something that we've been working on for a while and is currently in the early innovation phase in our alpha tests. So let's take a look. So in 2018, UXPin is going to render production code from your design system as design components inside of a design tool. This is a really radical solution. You are going to have your design component, your coded components, and as we know from my early slides, most of design systems are built in code first. You're going to have it available inside of a design tool. And render is not the best way to describe it, because we are not actually rendering a translation of your production code inside of a design tool. We are really putting your coded components inside of a design tool together with all the interactions that you coded into the components. So if you are going to have, say, a sortable table, it's going to be sortable inside of UXPin. If you have buttons with hover states and active states, they're going to have these states inside of UXPin. So this is a completely new idea of how designers and engineers can work together on building great products. Couple of details about how this thing is going to work. You're going to hook up UXPin to your GitHub, or rather, in your CI server, you're going to build this connection to UXPin. And then whenever there's a change to code of components in the design system repository and it's pushed to master, UXPin will automatically update all the components available to designers. On top of that, the documentation page, the design system documentation page that I showed you, is actually also going to be automatically built from the code repository. So all of a sudden, after hooking up UXPin just once to your GitHub account with a design system, to your GitHub repository with a design system, everything else happens automatically. You don't have to draw representations of the product inside of a design tool. You are actually drawing them with coded components. So this is a different way of thinking about design tooling that we have at UXPin and that we love, because we are on this mission to merge design and development and correct the process of building digital products. If you want to learn more, there's a little landing page at uxpin.com/design-from-code, and you can sign up for an early access. It's going to take us some time because, as I explained earlier, an innovation phase is a long cycle, and we are making sure that we are actually providing the greatest value possible to our customers. And there's a lot of freedom in our process, so we don't really have a deadline. But eventually, we are going to completely destroy the joke in this image. It's not going to be even funny because it's not going to be real. There's not going to be a wireframe on the tree, and all the wheels are going to be actual wheels, not squares. So this is coming up in UXPin in our innovation cycle. What else are we working on? What else are we thinking about? Well, one thing that I'm constantly thinking about is really aggressive API strategy. So I showed you a very early version of our API for design system, which is really a derivative of our optimization cycle, right? This YAML file, which is always up to date and represents all the basic parts of your design system. So you can work on that with that and generate all the style files that you need in all the formats that you need. Well, we have an idea that we are working on to take that couple of steps further into an aggressive API strategy. So what if all your documentation, all the parts of your design systems, all the categories, all the assets, and all the components were all available in a JSON format? So you can build tools on top of our API, so you can really make the entire process of maintaining design system automatic. Well, this is something that we are working on. This is something that we are really excited about. And there are multiple use cases that I'm excited about personally. One example would be, imagine that you can pull documentation from UXPin design system documentation page and generate markdown files for your design system repository. All of a sudden, design systems team, design operations team, have a CMS for building documentation files for the repository. So this is something that we are working on. But the innovation optimization cycle is endless. We are always asking big questions and looking for big things happening in our industry. And we're building them, and then we are optimizing them endlessly so we can provide the best value possible. And together with all of you, we can really bring design to the next stage. We can really help our industry mature and leave the teenage years, which are full of energy but also full of chaos. And we can lead design to the next stage. With that, I want to thank you, and I'm ready for your questions.
Thank you, Marcin. So we've got quite a bit of questions here. we'll try to go through as many as we can.
Sure.
If not, we do have recorded here, so we'll definitely get back to you, or you can always email us at hello@uxpin.com and we can get those answered for you. So first question is, do you know of design system examples with native components?
From the top of my mind, there's one that I remember, which is design system called, I believe, Harmony from Intuit. Intuit has a version with native mobile code for every single component that they have. So you can access that through Adele. You can just go to their documentation page. Unfortunately, they didn't open source, from what I remember, their code repository, so you can only see the documentation page. It's a very good design system, so highly recommend this to check it out.
Okay, thank you, Marcin. And before we go on to the next question, I'm gonna put a poll here, and it's really short. And if you guys could just answer that really quickly, and we'll go on to the next question. Okay. So the next question is, can you talk more about design systems for users who designs for iOS and Android?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are two paths, right? One is really what I just mentioned, which is having multiple versions of every component used in the system. So you'd have native code for iOS, Android, and this is what Intuit does for their systems. Another way is to move to a higher level of abstraction and use, for example, React Native, which compiles into native code, but really starts with JavaScript. And there are great systems out there which use this approach. The most memorable and also the least accessible, because they don't have an open source version of it, is Airbnb design system. Their design language have actually all the components written in React Native, so they work across all the platforms that they use. And that's this is what I consider the future of building components in a design system. One code base, multiple platforms. So I'm expecting to see more and more teams using React Native to build mobile apps. I know it sounds pretty crazy, but it's such a quick tool, and it's really the native experience. It's not like our old web versions of mobile apps, slow and clunky. It's really smooth experience, and it lets you actually control your code, the source of truth, from a single touch point. So that's really, really important.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcin. Next question. Do you recommend design systems in digital companies that have different clients with different graphic styles, like short-term projects?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So what we are seeing on the market right now is there are multiple really big software houses and interactive agencies which are already in the system world, and they serve multiple customers with their design systems. There are also massive enterprises which provides multiple versions of their design system to their own customers. A great example of a system working like that is Mineral UI from CA Technologies, a system which is really a mean to introduce modern front-end technologies to CA customers, which are world-leading enterprises. I also remember, and that might be helpful to the person asking this question, I remember a system, you can find it on Adele. I don't remember the name of the company, but there's one system with two spin-offs with different styling but same components. It's a very interesting concept in which the structure of the system and the logical and interactive parts of the systems are singular, but the styling is actually like in two streams, So there are also solutions for that out there. And definitely, I think we're going to see more and more entities serving multiple customers using design systems to control the experience. I also have heard the opinions in the industry that out of decency, every agency, every software house should actually deliver a design system to a customer, so any product is easy to maintain. And I really believe that this is true, and I thought that this is a really cool thought. So yeah, absolutely. Makes sense to me.
Awesome. So this is a question around React. Our dev team is on Angular. How does it work if UXPin only provides React code snippets?
So, we are observing the situation with Angular, and our solution, I suppose this question is about our design from code solution, is eventually going to also work outside of React universe, because what we are building, the technology is pretty universal. And Angular is out there. I know a few systems built with Angular. So we need to see, whether the next iteration of this innovative solution is going to be focused on Angular, or maybe web components are going to take a bigger portion of the market. So anyway, we are looking to actually support all the leading technologies out there. When it comes to the rest of UXPin solution, it's actually not attached to any particular way of writing code, to any framework, to any library. So in the design system documentation page that I presented, it's our system. So we use React. So all the examples are in React, but very well the examples could have been in Angular. That part is just documentation. It's just written documentation. So it's independent of any way to code interfaces. And then for the rest of UXPin, we are going to try to support all the technologies out there that are popular. So Angular is definitely on this list.
Okay, thank you, Marcin. Would you be able to export working production code from a mockup inside UXPin?
That's a great question, and we are still thinking about it. And the way we are thinking about it is whether it actually makes sense for the industry. We don't have a definite answer yet. There are some tools which are trying this approach of exporting components from a design tool. I think it's less of a problem right now, but there might be something there in the future. I guess the answer to this question is that after we are going to be done with a one-way tool which consumes production code seamlessly and is always up to date with the code repository, then we are going to run another innovation cycle aiming at understanding whether we should export code as well after some changes in the design tool. So far, I really hesitate because I think for developers, it's not really a problem to implement components that are already coded inside of the React code. It's just a question of reference and setting up all the props. So that's less of a problem, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I know that there are some different opinions about it on the market. We are definitely going to explore it, but it's not going to be most likely this year. So don't expect us to really invest in that part this year. Right now, we are focused on connecting designers and engineers through this one-way tool that really consumes code.
Okay, Marcin, so we have time for maybe 2 more questions here. So the next viewer is asking, what is the best way to start creating a design system?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the best way is actually to start with an interface inventory. So what you want to do really is you want to list all sorts of elements of the design that you have out there, whether that's in UXPin or a Keynote presentation, doesn't really matter. But you want to list, for example, all the buttons, all the text fields, all tables, all headers, like everything that repeats itself throughout the interface, just list it on separate pages. the way we did our inventory early on was actually with even lists of all the colors used in UXPin. And then what happens next is that you are actually going to see the inconsistencies across your design. And once you start with that, then it's much easier to get a buy-in in your organization. You can really show people that, look, we have way too many buttons, and this is confusing to users and really expensive to maintain on the code end. Or like you can show all the colors. I remember we had a crazy number of shades of gray, like over 100, and that was just confusing for our users and the team. So it was much easier to actually get the buy-in of stakeholders to invest into a design system. There's plenty of talks about how to start with a design system. I've done a few on our virtual summits in the past. There's a chapter about building an inventory in Brad Frost's Atomic Design. So that's a really good lecture. There's, from what I remember, there's also a chapter about it in Design Systems book by Alla Kolmatova, published by Smashing Magazine. So that might be a good reference point. But bottom line is start with the inventory and then take it from there once you actually have the buy-in of an organization.
Okay, thank you, Marcin. How open or resistant are developers to using documentation with UXPin?
Well, it's an interesting question because I'm a coding designer, so I have kind of like these two worldviews in my head simultaneously, and I can tell you that as a developer, I always enjoy documentation and working with developers for past 10, 15 years. I know that they enjoy things being documented as well because it just makes their job easier, and they love it as long as they don't have to do it. So that's a big selling point for UXPin because once you enter the documentation once, it's actually automatically delivered to developers in projects. So they just basically get what they want for free without any effort. And I've never heard anything negative from developers about having projects documented with information from a design system. They love it. I love it as a developer, and and I regret all the years spent with undocumented projects as much as I regret documenting projects manually as a designer, right? So I think with our solution, we actually solve problem for both worlds, for developers and designers.
Okay, thank you, Marcin. And that was the last question. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And thank you, Marcin, for a wonderful webinar.
Thank you.
So the next session, if anyone is interested in seeing UXPin, it will be hosted at 11:45, and we'd love to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you again. Bye-bye.